Of course, we start streaming. The first thing I do is slap the microphone. It's ThursdAGE with Owen KC Stephens. We've got friends tuning in on all the platforms. We're streaming on Twitch, Facebook, I almost said TikTok, YouTube, and what am I forgetting? YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Live, and Twitch. Chat's already rolling in. We've got Chris is saying funky music time. It is a little funky. Chris, let me know if you can. Hey, Jay Gray. You know, Jay Gray's our link wizard.
What's a link wizard do?
They magic up links, but Jay is telling us he can't do links, but he's doing a CSPO course. So he'll have us playing in the background as he's learning. Chanel, hi. Casey, good, you hear us. Brian says good evening. Jay Gray. I can only say Jay Gray. I just can't. Just Jay alone just doesn't quite cut it. But Jay says quit his job, so he'll have much more time in a couple weeks. Nice. Oh, you're doing Scrum. Nice.
Yeah, certified Scrum product owner.
That's nice. Yeah, you know, Jonesy, our buddy, is in that line of work. But yeah, I've worked on a few projects where we utilize Scrum. It's quite a process. I want to welcome everyone to ThursdAGE. Do me a favor, no matter where you're at, take a look at your surroundings. Are you watching us on Twitter? Make sure you're following us. I'm sure you are. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe and leave a comment and, you know, all that good stuff. Ring that bell, as they say. Make sure you're following us on Facebook. You know, we're almost to 10,000 people on Facebook. We should be much, much more than that, if you're asking me. Philip says, taking on the last dungeon of Final Fantasy while listening. Nice. That's nice. Casey Butt says, what is this word? I don't know.
Catthulu. It's
Meow.
Cthulhu, but with cat, right.
Yeah. I like it. Me also, ow. Well, Owen, why don't we get started, huh? I'm always, oh, it's getting kind of funky. Sorry, chill music, but you gots to go. Oh, look at that. Yeah, Jonesy's here, and they're going to start talking some production stuff, no doubt. But, you know, the gentleman you've all come to hang out with today is here behind what I like to call the modesty screen. I don't know why I call it that. It just cracks me up. But here he is. It's Owen KC Stephens. How are you, Owen?
I am alive. I am well. I am caffeinated. So these are the only things I can promise.
You know, our little pre-production discussion, you shared that you did take some cold medicine, so that should be hitting right now, and that should be a joy for all. Start the show, says Stan. Hi, Stan.
Yeah,
and here's
when you were saying here's the person you're all here to hang out with, I was about to say Stan in the comments. Yes, it is a calamity wear mug. This is my favorite coffee, hot tea, whatever mug. It's got kaiju and aliens and
so cool.
I got this for my birthday a couple of years ago when I turned 50. When I turned 50 during the pandemic, and a large number of my friends from around the world actually got together to make that not suck the way turning 50 during the pandemic could have, and I really appreciate it. So
that's very nice. Yeah, the first time I saw Calamity Wear was our mutual friend and my style icon, Nicole.
oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and her coffee aesthetic is a good deal stronger than mine. So
Absolutely. So listen to this. It's ThursdAGE. We're talking about some stuff. We're talking about magic items.
yeah,
And in the context of fantasy age, now here's a question. We've got some people who are waiting for some notification on prizes. They
yeah.
have won some stuff. Now, do we want to do that now, or would we prefer to make them wait and then, forget and then
I've always been a open one present on Christmas Eve and open your birthday stuff before the cake kind of person. So
samesies? Yeah.
let's do the gifting now, so that if these are people who have come here and who have won a prize, I believe that they're going to stay. We don't have to bribe them with a prize later. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so here's the thing. Ultimately, we do enjoy people, that kind of hang out and watch ThursdAGE with us. We do enjoy that, but you don't have to play. And we've got. So here's the deal. We've got an age RPG sort of Facebook group, and they are very active. I'm going to drop the link to this particular post, but then we'll also take you directly to the group. And my recommendation, if you're not a part of that group, then why don't you do that? Go over and check it out. But let me share the screen real quick. Actually, real quick. I'm going to share the screen real quick. Here we go. 1 second. The admin had just a really great idea, and that was to have the community share some nice things about why age games work for them, and it was very, very nice. Hold on real quick while I get us there. And I am a big fan of that whole group. They've got some good things. I am, for some reason, there we go. That's why. I just moved, Owen. I moved into a brand new place, and I was hit smack in the face with a board 2 days ago.
yeah.
You won't believe why.
All right. I thought I wasn't supposed to believe number 4 why, but we could make the top 10 reasons why Troy was smacked in the face with a board.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. Why don't we let that kind of simmer and marinate? But I was concussed, and and what what caused the injury to my face has also damaged my brain in some small way, which is great. But that is just to say, this is a new Troy you get used to. It's just mid-show clickbait. It is. Yeah, it is. The answer will shock you. But first, this. Do-do-do-do-do-do. And it's probably not showing yet.
Nope.
It will when I do this. Okay, yeah. So we set up this contest with these folks, and it was really just a drawing. Let me make this a little bigger so that you can see it. Don't pay attention to any of my other things here. Yeah, so basically they went through and they said some really nice stuff about us, and I thought that was really great. It looks like about near 50 people engaged in this, give or take a few. Just look at all these kind comments. Yeah, I dropped the link in chat. I recommend you go check it out because it is I thought it was a very thoughtful endeavor, and we do indeed. Let me get rid of that real fast, and I will share the. Let's stop this and do this and sing a song. A ding dong. Okay, here are the winners. Ready?
I'm ready.
Here they go. We've got Julian Limousino, I think. Julian says, "Ages is the system that helped me learn how good it is to interact with intelligent NPCs. Blue Rose and Dragon Age were good starting points." Yeah, nothing worse than a dumb NPC, I say. And then Scott C. Holden says Age's mechanics are simple to learn and robust enough to support multiple styles of play. All this stuff is true and great. And John Snyder says Modern Age gives the GM a flexible system to tackle any story. The players have dynamic character for that story. And there you go. Those are the winners. They win a big bunch of Age stuff. I do know that yeah, we're really having a good time with that community and encourage you to join. I'm looking at some of the comments, and we've got something from Stan. Stan says, a quick, which I like. Oh, great. Thank you, Chris. Everyone go, click that link in and join that group. And let's see here. I like this. Hey, I'm supposed to be working, but I'm a big fan of the work Green Ronin does. Looking forward to the Cthulhu book. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's from Kefa Studios.
So for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about with the Cthulhu book, this is Age news, so it's worth mentioning here because I don't think we've ever even hinted at it before. Although when I've said there are exciting things coming, this is one of the things I mean. Green Ronin has announced that we are going to be doing a book called Cthulhu Awakens. It is going to be a Age book. It is a standalone book. It just happens to also kind of exactly work the way Modern Age does. But it is a look at Lovecraftian canon with a different take. It works on the assumption that the original mythos hinted at the truth, but that truth was obscured by the original mythos's authors' biases and fallibilities. And so we are creating what we're calling the weird century, anytime between 1920s and the present day. So you can do a Cthulhu Lovecraft style sets of stories where we have taken some of the stuff that, and when I say we, I don't mean myself. All I've done is occasionally say, hey, what if this was a standalone book? But a great list of writers have taken a new look at some of these concepts and decided what that group, our writers, our creators, our developers, thought was baggage that didn't have to come with. Because there's a lot of baggage in Lovecraft. But at the same time, also, that means once you've said, hey, the canon is a hint of what reality is like, which is the most Cthulhian Lovecraftian thing ever, right? There are tomes and ancient secrets and legends, and they all hint at the truth, but they're not accurate. That's already a pretty solid mythos-like concept. But once you've decided that you are going to do your own take inspired by these things, you can also say, what are things that we know here in the 2020s that we can spin differently? How can we interconnect these things? What are the motivations? What have we learned about how cultures interact? I've gotten to read a lot of the stuff for this, and as I said, I haven't worked on it at all, but I'm very, very impressed by it, and I think
it's so good. Yeah.
And we've got an announcement up on the greenronin.com blog, and that announcement has a link to the Green Ronin Kickstarter page where you can click to get notified.
That's right. Drop the link in the chat so you can check that out. And there's a couple comments that people, I just want to address this real fast. People, they're like, oh, inclusive, and everybody's doing it. Well, we're not cornering the market on inclusivity, and that's not what the effort is here. The effort is just to say we're not engaging in the problematic aspects of of this particular creator who is long dead and and had some odious views. Really excited. I'm a huge Cthulhu. I love Cthulhu. Jonesy posts in the chat the writing and design team for Cthulhu Awakens. That's Shireen Biswas, David Castro, Elizabeth. I'm going to say this name wrong. Cool. I am so sorry. I did not say that right, Elizabeth. Hiromi. We've got HD Ingham, Khaldun Kelly, Daniel Luzon, and Ian Lemke. We know that guy. Monty Lynn, Jack Norris. We know that guy. Malcolm Shepard. And Malcolm was, the shepherd of all this. Really, really excited about that. And KC says, holding a sign while listening. Great stuff. Nice. Absolutely. Yeah,
Stan,
that's
Stan has a
Stan's
comment
got it.
there that a huge fan of the mythos, not so much of Lovecraft.
That's
That is
exactly right.
very much right. And Modern Age is exactly the sort of role playing game where people want to do mythos stuff, right? It is a natural fit for it, and that makes it as a publisher, you're like, well, people are going to want this. People want to run these games. People want to have this material. We've got a few choices. We can do nothing and say, hey, pick up your Call of Cthulhu game and try and convert percentile into 3d6 with stunts. That doesn't seem great. Or we can say, hey, maybe this is not the way we want. I mean, it's no secret that I have mental health issues, right? I've been very, very public about this. I'll continue to be public about it. And I have not always been delighted with the way mental health issues are presented in mythos and Lovecraft material. At the same time, there is an element of noisome and disquieting things that blast your mind and cause you to not think clearly. The question is, do we have to frame that as mental illness? So that is an example of the sort of place where there's more than one way to approach these issues. And Cthulhu Awakens is a effort to take all of the stuff we thought was good, make it actually better. I got to read some of the early stuff that Malcolm wrote, and some of the explanation and links of what people are doing and why they're around and what their goals are, if those goals can even be comprehended by mortal minds, is just independent of anything else itself. Exciting stuff that I'm hyped to see and look forward to building on. But at the same time, if you're going to go to that effort as a publisher, if you're going to say let's pick up this thing that is extremely popular, that fits perfectly with our game, that makes perfect sense, and let us skim the cream off the top and get rid of the chaff. And I'm mixing my metaphors. There's the cold medicine for you.
Yeah, I think I saw right when it hit.
and try to make a game that will be fun for everybody, which is a thing we talk
Right,
about on
right.
this show a lot.
And here's the deal. We all get it. We are, we love the mythos. We're doing it, because of that piece of it. We're not bringing any of the problematic stuff. We're also not going to make this obnoxious. It's going to be good stuff, good storytellers, and good playing around the table.
We're not trying to take the horror out of the mythos, right? We are trying to create a mythos that can focus on the interesting part of the mythos and not get drugged down with the human foibles that honestly shouldn't be what the mythos is about anyway. If something is that galactic and horrific and humanity is insignificant, then the prejudices and hang-ups of humanity should be equally insignificant, and therefore we should not be using them as a way to map the things that actual elder beings tap into or are themselves concerned with.
People are small, but this mythos is big, and we're just gonna, we're avoiding all that stuff. And other companies have done the same, and we're just we're happy with that. And so, with that being said, oh hello, hello, Rain says hello, and so with that being said, I look so forward to this. I really, there's some great things happening. There's just it's gonna be exciting, and I'm a huge fan. That's true. Small things are small, and so there you go. Just know that. Owen, this is your program. This is your
Yeah.
your party, and we are partying. And I have put. I tried to unbox all my stuff, but unfortunately, it did not. It did not pan out for me.
And then you got hit in the eye with a board.
That's right. I did. Did everyone? No guesses yet. It was not Cthulhu. Just so you're aware. But no, what it was, I was somebody had hidden a nativity scene in the rafters of a garage, and I was grabbing the nativity scene. So, and then a board just came out of nowhere. The joke was a plank in my eye. So baby Jesus is responsible for my concussion. I think.
I still, my guess, which I didn't have time to give, but it still applies to the facts you've given, is I personally think that the place where you were exploring was at one time protected by a Macaulay Culkin style trapster in a Home Alone
Mm.
style situation, and that booby trap had just never been discovered. So it was an Indiana Jones in suburbia, right, with the
Uh-huh.
important icon and relic, and yeah.
Yeah, it felt like a high roll on a 1d20. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and no D8s on this show, right? We're this is an adventure game.
D6.
It's a D6 plus 2.
There we go. D6 plus 2. I like that. Oh yeah, yes. Sweet baby. Hassus. Yes, it was something else, and rang my bell. Like I get that. I've never had a black eye before either. But no, I think you're right, Owen. I think they baited the trap with the nativity, knowing that I'd be like, "What the heck is this nativity?" And ta-da! No worries, Blaine. Blaine says, "Sorry, no, you're fine, friend. We
Well, and let's be really clear. If you decide in your age system game that a weapon does a D8 and you all have D8s, that won't break anything. Uh, if you were doing it for tests, if you're doing 3D8 instead of 3D6, you'll throw the math curve way off. The fact of the matter is, if you want a weapon to do 1D13 because you bought one at a convention and you think a D13 is cool, that won't break anything.
It's the beauty of the age system and the beauty of the design of it all. And today we're going to roll into using magic items and preparing magic. Oh, Amy, help me out here.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Let's talk magic items. So here we are in our Fantasy Age basic rulebook. For those of you that have PDFs or physical copies of this, you can follow along conceptually with us on page 118, which is in the chapter rewards, which is very straightforward. So it talks about level advancement, reputation, goal fulfillment, treasure, and as a subcategory of treasure, magic items. I want to start with a very basic difference between Fantasy Age. Somebody didn't disembody fast enough. That's funny. Between Fantasy Age and a lot of very popular, let us say, more D20 based fantasy role playing games. There are a lot of role playing games on the market and have been since the D20 system launched in 2000. That as your character advances, a certain number of magic items that give you a certain number of bonuses are a built in assumption of the game. So for those games, if you do not have a +3 weapon by a certain level, you will not be able to perform mathematically the way the game assumes you will. And there's a logic behind that. That was just a coach from the D20 system for a bit before the system was going up, and I was one of the play testers. And that means that you can have that progression be assumed within the game. The drawback is it means that a +3 weapon stops feeling special because you have to have one. And in fact, if you don't get one, you end up behind the curve. Whereas in Fantasy Age, uh, definitely some of the common magic items are probably things that will show up in your game a lot, but nothing in here magically is assumed. None of it is necessary. If you had a game with no magic items whatsoever, it might ultimately be a little harder for the characters because the game does allow for magic, but it would not, in fact, be beyond the curve. Now, part of that is because Fantasy Age is built on the assumption that you're going to be rolling your ability scores. There are rules for picking them, but it means that each level within the game has a certain flexibility. And instead of monsters having, this is a monster for a 7th level character, this is a monster for a 9th level character. There are much more ranges, right? We have minor threats, moderate threats, extreme threats. Okay, not extreme threats, but you know what I'm saying. So we could have, though. That range is what we assume you're working with a magic item. If you note that there are not a whole lot of magic items in this book, you're right. We've got, I don't know, 2 pages of permanent magic. Yeah, 2 pages of permanent magic items and 2 pages of temporary ones. So the permanent magic items, I can literally name them all. You've got Adept's Wand, Dragon Wall, Elven Mail, Helm of Invisibility, Hunter's Bow, Mage's Font, Magister Staff, Rogue's Purse, Scout's Boots, Scrying Stone, Shadow Cloak, Thunder Axe, and Wormslayer. That's it. But on page 118, there's this incredibly important column right here, Magic Item Benefits. And it has a list of almost as many possible ways to make a permanent magic item as there are listed permanent items. So if you're a game master and you want to pass things out to people, that column lets you make custom magic items fast and easy, and then you can just look at what we've done as examples and determine, okay, should this be uncommon, legendary, rare, and we talk about how available they are. There isn't a magic item economy, right? These things don't come with prices on them because King Arthur did not go out and spend 10,000 gold on Excalibur, right? He pulled it from the stone pretty early in his career, in fact, and it remained relevant throughout his career. So if you wanted, the Sword of Kings, you could easily say, hey, here's a sword. It gives you +1 fighting and +1 to communication because you're the Sword of Kings. That, simple as it is a really potent magic item. And because it gives you a flat bonus, it is relevant as a first level character. But if you're a 16th, 17th, 18th level character, that is still a relevant thing. That is still making you that much better. And because the game works with a bell curve, how much statistically it helps you depends on how good you are with things to begin with, and that's fine. It means that the closer to the middle you are on being good at something, the bigger a jump you get. Because if you're terrible at it, you'll be a little less than terrible, and that may not be a big deal. And if you're already great at it, you'll be a little less than great, or a little better than great. So I know that reading the text of the stuff, like, here are how magic item benefits work, I know that can be boring. And I know a lot of items end up being thrown together at the last second because you realize that you've killed a dragon, there has to be a horde. But I really recommend that page 118, read it. And then there's magic item restrictions, which can throw in on page 119. Stephen Jones asks, any suggestions on making items that grow with the character as they level? That's a great question. The answer is yes, but. First, anything that is a static bonus to character stats is automatically growing with the character for the reasons I just went over. If you've got a sword that gives you +1 fighting and you have a 3 fighting, then you have a 4 with the sword. If, as a character, you buy yourself up to a 4, then with the sword you have a 5, so it has grown with you. If you're going along and you buy up to a 5, it gives you a 6. So that +1 automatically scales with your character. That is different from, you could perfectly well make a sword and say, hey, here's the Sword of Silver Serpentry, which allows rogues to fight better. This sword allows members of the rogue class to fight with a fight of 4. So instead of whatever your fighting is, it has a 4. And Rain points out that items that grow with you can also include artifacts from the companion. That's very true. There are items scattered throughout the books. The companion is a great place for a deeper delve into them. I was sticking with just the basic rulebook for the moment, but Rain's absolutely right. When you're looking for more, you can go there. But if you do want it to actually grow as you go, so that the item gets more and more and more powerful, there are various ways you can do that. One is that you can have it give you additional focuses and have a focus possibly from a selected list as you go. So if we wanted to, for example, have a Archmage's Ring, and you're like, hey, this Archmage's Ring is useful at low level. It's nice. No one's going to turn it down. But the Archmage's Ring grows in power as you go. Well, then you could say your Archmage's Ring gives you an additional focus, an Arcana focus, every 4 levels. And obviously, people will choose arcana that they have as mages, as spellcasters, or if you've taken some sort of talent or specialization that gives other classes. And that way, the number of things it applies to increases as you go. So at first level, you might say, okay, I've got the Lightning Arcana. I've picked up this Ring of Archmages. All it does is give me a +1 to my Lightning Arcana tests. That's already great. But then in 4 levels, if it gives you another focus, or even more than a focus, it gives you a +1 on top of something. Or if at a certain level it allows your focuses to become double focuses. These are all ways that you can have them grow with you. You can also have things go up in total value. That is like it's +1 to fighting at 1st through 8th level. It's +2 if you're 9th through 16th, and it's +3 if you're 17th or above. That means that item becomes more and more and more powerful on top of the character becoming more and more powerful. So you're marching one end upper and upper and upper. Casey Butt says this sounds like a question I asked about the Book of Swords a week ago. For those of you that don't know, the Book of Swords is a Cyberhagen book, which has some really cool rune blades in it that are forged by the gods and build and collapse empires. And they've got Coin Spinner and Shield Breaker and Wound Healer. It's a great series. When I read it not long after it came out, when I was much younger, it was very formative in my head of what Runeblade should be like. And you could easily model those kinds of Runeblades in this game system by having them have a focus set of things that they build up on. You could very easily... One of the interesting things about the Book of Swords is that the swords aren't all about fighting, right? So you could easily model something like that by having one rune blade per ability and have each of them give you a series of focuses. And obviously everyone would be super excited about the one that's connected to fighting, all right? Because that will, if you're carrying it and it is itself a heavy blade, you get better at using it. But just having it means you'll also get better with using polearms and spears and axes. And the one for dexterity is not so much about fighting, but it makes you better at all the dexterity related things and give you more focuses, increase your focus bonus. And that would be a quick way to break them out into different styles of weapon. You can also just make stuff up. And this is an important part of how Fantasy Age works that sometimes freaks out people that are from more controlled, number-focused, tightly delineated game systems. And I'm going to pick on 2 games, one of which I had a lot to do with designing and one that I had nothing to do with designing, that can enforce in your head a certain mentality that Fantasy Age does not need. When I was first getting into role-playing games, one of the ones that I hit hard, I think the first not fantasy / post-apocalyptic game I got into was Champions, which is a game where you build your character with points, and everything has a specific number of points. And an energy blast is 1d6 damage for 5 points with a set range, which costs 1 endurance. And then you have mathematical advantages, like it can be armor piercing, or it can have reduced endurance cost, it can have increased range. Then there are limitations. Maybe it's got a certain number of charges, or you can't do less than maximum damage. That system is almost like Car Wars, or doing your taxes for that matter, for a role-playing game. And that there's a very specific set of numbers and a character. You say, like, okay, everyone's making 150-point characters, and you can't have more than 30 active points in any one power, and you can't have more than 15 total points in a given power. And if that is one of the ways that you learn about making new things for a game, you can end up with this mindset that I need to find the specific rails that all abilities and powers and skills are built on in this game system, and only adjust those. And that's the sort of thing I've just been talking about, right? Here on our list of magic item benefits, they specifically talk about you can give damage bonuses, defense bonuses, you can have spell bonuses, you can have stunt bonuses, like the ability to perform a particular stunt or reduce stunt points, or perform a unique stunt normally unavailable to you. Those are all things that are very specifically tied to numbers and effects defined within the game. But you could also in fantasy, and I was going to talk about Starfinder briefly. I helped create the Starfinder role-playing game. In Starfinder, things are very tightly linked so that your total offense and your total defense and the amount of gear you have and what level that gear can be, the game assumes that you will all be in this fairly narrow range, and the game takes great steps to keep you within that range. And there's language all through it saying things like, this does not stack with that, and you if you're a 5th level character, you cannot normally buy a 20th level gun no matter how much money you have. It'll work for you once you buy it, but no one will sell it to you. None of that is true with Fantasy Age. In Fantasy Age, if you want to say this is a trident and whoever has this trident can communicate telepathically with all aquatic creatures, that's a perfectly valid item within Fantasy Age. The one drawback to doing that is that once you've done it, the Fantasy Age rules don't really give you any guidance on how does that work. So as a game master, when you're doing that, you have to be comfortable with any of the abilities you create and how you're going to handle them on an ad hoc narrative basis, right? Now, if you're just saying it lets you communicate with all aquatic creatures, it's not that complicated. You can say, hey, we literally have communication as an ability, make a communication check, and I, as the GM, will just set a target number based on the base target numbers of what you can learn. So if you're going to go out and talk to some fish and say, hey, how many fishermen come out here? How often do boats come out? And I'll just go, that seems like something fish might know, or at least if fish are smart enough to talk and when you're holding the trident, they seem to be. So I'll set a target number and I'll say 9, make a test number 9 communications test holding the trident and see what you can learn from the fish. Whereas if you ask the fish, hey, where is there buried treasure from a ship that went down? I might go, well, if you were right on top of it, that's a great question for them. And if I've got an adventure plan, that's a great question for them. But if you're just asking fish, where in the great wide ocean is there a sunken ship full of treasure? Like they know treasure, right? They may tell you where there is the ship that happens to have the tastiest bits of coral or brine attached to it that they think is a treasure because they have no use for gold. The book doesn't help you with that. That doesn't mean you can't do it. You just have to think about when you're passing out that kind of item, that large scope item, what is a player going to want to do, and how am I going to respond to it? One of the ways you can handle that kind of issue, instead of making these permanent items, is if you want to start playing with those things with a specific group to see how they interact. You can say, okay, look, the game has potions. It has very specifically a healing potion and mage's elixir and restorative balm. So I'm going to say you have found a potion that allows you to talk to squirrels. I'm a big fan of Squirrel Girl. I am going to put its potion in my game to let you talk to squirrels. And it's a one-shot potion, and it lasts for an hour. Why not? Again, there's no hard guidance that says it must last for 1 hour per level or whatever. That's the sort of thing that spells in Fantasy Age frequently do. Say you can talk to a category of animal. And then you can just see how the players handle this, right? Do they use it by, there's a creepy dark forest or there's a weird thing around it and someone says, hey, we've got this potion, I'll drink it and I'll try and talk to the squirrel. In which case you know what to do and you go on. Or have you found a group where they're like, great, all right, so I'm going to get 200 squirrels together and I'm going to catch them all and I'm going to drink them and I'm going to try and launch a socialist squirrel worker party that will refuse to gather nuts without the collective gaining some sort of benefit. If that works in your game, great. But all I'm saying is by giving people a one-time power, you have this ability to see what kind of thing your players are doing with it rather than introducing something permanent to your game that if they are constantly hearing off in directions that use a GM aren't having fun with and aren't comfortable with, or if the players aren't having fun because they feel like they should be able to solve all problems by talking to squirrels and you're not letting them do that. This gives you the opportunity to, instead of having permanently introduce that and be like, well, now I'm going to have Squirrel Breaker show up as a villainous Black Knight who's there to destroy all tridents that allow you to speak to squirrels. And I'm mixing my metaphors, but I think you all know what I mean. You can just say, well, okay, you used a potion once. That's not how I was really thinking of it going, and we won't worry about it anymore because you used it. You can also look through spells. All right, I'm sorry. I got to hop in with Stan. Stan says, my playtesters had an epic conversation with squirrels when I was writing an adventure for Dragonlance 5th Age back in the Lake Geneva days. Yeah, if you're the right kind of GM and you've got the right kind of players, sometimes silly little things can be a huge deal. I had a fantasy RPG where there was a group called Fairy Doctors, which were the mortals that were trusted to help fairies with ailments and problems. And when you were a certain level of Fairy Doctor, there would be some food that you became the best at the world at making, and the NPC, the characters ran into an NPC who made the world's best cheese toast. I had no game mechanical rules for that. I just told them when he was cooking toast over, over a fire, a little bit of brioche or whatever. He sprinkled some cheese on it, toasted it over his campfire, gave it to him, and just said, that's the best cheese toast you've ever had or you can imagine ever having. Some players really glommed onto, why is this shepherd who happens to protect his flock with a bow instead of a crook, why is Old Man Jopp was the character's name, why is he making the best cheese toast I can even conceive of? And they used that as the rabbit hole to go down to discover that he was a fairy doctor, that this was a thing. Some of them became interested. How do you become a fairy doctor? What's that route look like? A whole plot line branched out of that. And they were super excited to have some food stuff, some tea, some soup that they would just get to say, within this game, within this universe, it has been declared by the GM as a result of this power that I make the best whatever, this one thing, of anybody of all time ever. Those players were super excited by that. It didn't have a game mechanical bonus. It's not that this counts as Hero's Feast once a day. You'll get a +2 morale bonus. No, it's just you make the best chicken noodle soup. If it happened to be chicken noodle soup, I might well have said, okay, you could use your craft chicken noodle soup check in place of a healing check. But when you've got that sort of power, where these magic items and abilities and anything you're making up interact with the players, it's a place that playstyle has a huge difference. And I love adding little quirky things as we go. I ended up having someone in a game of mine became a Knight of the Flame, which just meant that the 4 elements turned out to all have their own courts with kings and queens and dukes. This one was a knight, and one day as a knight, while making a fire, a little spark jumped off the fire and turned out to be a 1 hit point fire elemental that would hop around and spend time with her. And all it did was anything you could do with flint and steel, she could do instantly because she had a single elemental spark. It wasn't combat effective. You could kill it with a glass of water. She, in fact, had to spend money on a little brazier with some charcoal in it so it could live there happily. But the player loved that she now had control. As a knight, one of her vassals, her squire, was a little tiny spark of red that could hop around, and she thought of creative ways to use it. But it's part of a conversation, and that's the thing that in Fantasy Age one of the things I find so exciting is that the game is tight enough and defined enough that it's easy to say, hey, we've got this set of ability scores, we've got focuses, we've got generic test numbers for everything. But it's loose enough that if you want to you want to say, hey, this crossbow is a double crossbow, so when it's fully loaded, you can shoot a bolt as a major action and one as a minor action, and then it takes a full round to reload or 2 rounds to reload, because I watched Lady Hawk and I love the double-decker crossbow. And then you don't really have to worry about exactly how that impacts the balance of the game. Everything is a little wibbly-wobbly anyway. We're not trying to create a series of experiences where if you are exactly 7th level and you have exactly the amount of gold for 7th level characters, then you should be expending 1/4 of your total resources in order to overcome a threat of 7th level appropriateness. The game instead is designed to be played in a looser manner where you're telling people, hey, look, you see some brigands and it looks like the brigands all have 2-handed axes and they are waiting to ambush you on a bridge, and you've spotted them. You, the players, get to ask some questions and make some checks and try and determine, are we up to these brigands or not? And that's why the minor threat, moderate threat, all the way up to legendary threat. Don't throw legendary threats at 3rd level characters. But within the range of appropriate encounters for the players, there are plenty of things that could go right, could go wrong. It's not a guaranteed A will always equal B. You should always expect to be able to overcome this much difficulty kind of game system. And there are drawbacks to that looseness, of course, but one of the advantages is it means that you can play with it without impacting the expected results of the players. I think I just spoke for a half hour straight.
You did, and I love that. I have been silently sweating over here as I'm trying to get the PDF up. New IP. Google decided that they didn't recognize me anymore, and so I had to do some fancy clicking. But I'm back, and so you could.
I'll continue to cover for a sec while you work on that. I mentioned spells. Obviously, one of the things you can do with magic items is give access to specific spells within Arcana. And this is actually a place where I said I was trying to stick to the core book mostly, but this is definitely a place we're looking at the companion, especially the companion has cantrips or minor spells that you can pick up. It's extremely useful. But you can also look at these things to determine what sort of thing does the game assume it will handle well, so everyone who's experienced with the game should already be used to. So I'm looking at the Fire Arcana, and it's got Arcane Lantern, which specifically says, the spell eliminates a 10-yard radius centered on you. Arcane Lantern lasts for 1 hour, but can be extended for 2 magic points per additional hour. And it eliminates the area with a steady light similar to that of a lantern. Well, that tells you that if you just tell people how big an area, how long does it last, how bright is it, that's all the information the game insists on you having. So if you end up saying, hey, you have a dagger that you picked up from a horde of trolls that was built by an ancient bunny centaur empire, and it glows in a 1-yard radius, centered on the dagger, with roughly the light of a candle. That's not a spell that's in this book. But you know from looking at the way the book is built up, Rain says, I bet a lot of games sleep on the Spellstone in the basic rule book. Yeah, the Spellstone is one of the magic items that is in here. And it is absolutely a good example of what you can do with the game. And now I'm spending time flipping instead of talking. Treasure, just a minute. Because Rain's absolutely right. It's a thing that doesn't, I think, come up as often as possible. Spellstone, it's a common item. This small precious or semi-precious stone or crystal contains or stores a particular spell. If you're a mage, while touching the stone, you can use the cast action to cast the spell it contains as if you know it with no magic point cost. Once the stored spell has been cast, it cannot be used again, although you can recharge a stone by casting a spell is meant to hold in it while the stone is empty. So it's a one-shot, but it's a rechargeable one-shot, and it saves you magic points, so it's a great... first of all, if you don't have the spell, it can be great, because it can expand it. Actually, does it say you have to have it? As if you know it, right, so you don't have to know it. If you do know it, you can then recharge it by casting in it, so that will save you on magic points. But that's... And it's a common magic item, so... At about the time that you're saying, hey, look, we can give an arrow of wounding or an arrow of pure... Well, those are uncommon. We can give out some arcane lights and some arcane tents and some healing potions. Hey, the mage might want something special. They get this. You can also use that at the same time, that same concept of the Spellstone for other classes. You could perfectly say, hey, here's a combat stunt stone that has a combat stunt in it, that on any successful attack, you can expend this to use this one combat stunt, whether or not you got stunt points. And then once you do that, it is expended until such time as you get stunts in combat and you expend a stunt point to put it back in.
All right, hold on for 1 sec. So you were just in the companion, ThursdAGE companion.
Yep.
And now I dropped the link in chat, okay. And now now we're headed back into the basic rulebook. Okay.
I am mostly hanging out in the basic rulebook. The companion, and a lot of the stuff will be in the core rulebook, which will release later this year.
That's right. Hey, a quick question. What page are you on?
I am mostly. I am on pages 118, 119.
Okay, great. Yep.
But I was just talking about combat stunts, which if you want, you can go to page 36. So there's some 1-point stunts, right? A skirmish. You can move yourself from the target of your attack 2 yards in a direction for each 1 stunt point you spend. So you could perfectly well, using the mage stone as an example, you could say, hey, here's a skirmish stone. When you make a successful attack, you automatically get, when you expend the stone, 1 point of skirmish and move yourself or someone else 1 yard in one direction. And then you hold on to it because it's expended, but you can recharge it by next time you are in combat, and it has to be legit combat. You can't have a sack of skunks that you hit until you get stun points. See, that's the sort of thing that some players want to do, and so you have to and in Starfinder, we literally had this rule called significant enemies, that if there wasn't someone present who was at least your level -2, that it doesn't count as a combat for purposes of, right? But instead, in Fantasy Age, we just go, you know what? The GM's going to allow that, or he's not. He gets to decide what's called combat. And if you are beating a sack of skunks, first of all, you're a bad person. Secondly, that doesn't count as a combat. So that you have to wait until in a legit combat you get stun points, and you say, well, I'm going to recharge my stone with one of my stun points because I don't think I need them right now. And, you could have more expensive ones. You could have a pierce armor stunt, which I think would actually be extremely popular. And those are just ways that you can take a thing that exists in the game already. We've got the Mage Stone, and make a fighter version of it just by saying, well, instead of a spell, which takes mana points, we're going to do this other thing.
Beauty.
And that's kind of it on magic items. Don't overload people with magic items. It's fine to give people a few expendable magic items, but if they're not using them, don't pile them up. No one wants to have their character have, well, no GM wants to deal with players that have 27 healing potions because they decide to never use them. But I think a magic sword that is nifty and storied and looks cool is better than you've got a magic sword and a magic dagger and 2 magic feathers that you stick in your helmet and a magic thread that you use to sew your magic surcoat together. I do frequently like situations where things can become more magical. I have done things in Fantasy Age, like you all have killed the demon dragon that was rampaging through the countryside, and all your weapons now do additional damage against demons, dragons, or anything in that oeuvre. Because that way that the stuff the players are already care about, that they're carrying around, that are the things that are meaningful to their characters, now get that extra story added to it. Oh yeah, this is my sword, which was already a +1 fighting sword, and since we killed Gumthuk the demon dragon, come up with a better name than Gumthuk.
What?
Gumthuk. It was a bad fantasy name. That was a cold medicine name right there.
I liked it.
Gumthuk the demon dragon. And if you say it fast, it sounds even dirtier than it already is.
I think that's what I heard. Yeah, but
yeah, right. Gumthuk, Gumthuk.
Gumthuk. Yeah,
I will stand by that till my dying day. So since we killed the demon dragon, it is also, yeah, and it turns out that maybe the problem with the demon dragon was that his parents named him Gumthuk, and if he'd been named Smog or at least Air Quality Warning, people would have been nicer to him when he was young, and he would have gotten to play in all the demon dragon games.
Did you say Air Quality Warning?
Yeah, as opposed to Smog. Smog is taken. So.
That's great. That's good. Hey, we've got an art submission.
Oh no, do we really?
Yeah, I think I've figured out now. I mean, we took Stan to really help crack the code on it, but yeah, here we go.
All right, let's see it. Why did Troy get hit in the face with a 2x4? He's disembodied. Where else can I hit him? Too true. I like that Troy looks like he is becoming visible because somebody who looks suspiciously like me is hitting him with a 2x4.
Mm-hmm. Who looks suspiciously like you. So, yeah, where were you on the day that this happened?
I was disembodied at the time.
And there we have it, friends. Yes, we got about 5 minutes left of ThursdAGE, and the for folks who are watching,
Oh,
what are some?
Stan
Oh,
says there's more art.
there's
More
even
art,
more. I'm gonna have to check it out. I
So
hope
what we're
it
currently
has.
doing is
Oh, this is so
a
good.
series of walks through elements of Fantasy Age. And that's what we started with equipment, and now we're doing magic items. And we sort of have to decide what we're going to do next. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think I would really like to talk about exploration stunts next time around because they are one of the fascinating parts of the game. And I think because they are unlike the way the vast majority of games handle exploration, I think some people don't intuitively see how to work with them. So I think it'll be a cool exploration. I talk about combat stunts and spell stunts a lot. I love exploration stunts, but they work best if the GM preps things in advance to work with them. So I think that's what we'll talk about next time. But if you want to hear us discuss some specific topic, a deep dive into the Fantasy Age, or for that matter, any other age game here on ThursdAGE, be sure to send your suggestion to let's play at greenranine.com, and that will show up in the disembodied mailbox of Troy, and
It will indeed.
he can let me know that somebody has an actual suggestion instead of me just letting cold medicine guide me like a Ouija board of flu symptoms.
Ouija board of flu symptoms. I love it. Hey, also, I know that we've got some friends who are waiting for some prizes. I was disembrained for a while there, but I'm back in the saddle. So look for that. And
Good.
here's some art.
More art. Come on, the adventure is about to start. Hey, I make the best oat muffins in the world. I've got responsibilities. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to meet the person that makes the best oat muffins in the world.
Me too.
Also, I really love Twiggin as a name, and I'm not sure why.
Not as good as what?
Who knows? I also love, hey, the adventure is about to start. It sounds like there's a dungeon master with a starting gun, and there's a line, right? The adventure is about to
That's right.
We're doing the three-legged dungeon delve. We got to strap you to another player and fight through the whole thing that way.
I like it. Oh, hey, that would, yeah. Well, if the GM was in charge of the intramural day, where you're, I love it. Well, so anything else? I know you are hopped up on the cold meds, and but I'm wondering anything else you want to share? Any place you want to have some folks stop by and say hey?
No, X-Crawl Age. That's a great idea.
That's so funny.
No, I'm not gonna trust myself to make any other suggestions today. The timer on and turning back into a pumpkin in 2 minutes.
That's
So
right. That's right.
I
No,
think we're good.
no problem. Yeah, and if you've got an adventure name that you'd like to share directly, send a note to Let's Play. Hey, also that's Let's Play at greenrona.com. But also, we're going to be here Monday with Mutants and Masterminds Monday. But brace yourselves for this Cthulhu stuff, friends. There's going to be so much going on. You're going to want to be a part of every minute of it. So subscribe to all the things, like all the stuff, give us all the love, and you will learn more about the plans in the coming days. This isn't a matter of weeks. This is a matter of days.
And Stan says those winners are.
Those winners are beautiful. They're lovely. They are fantastic, and they will be all listed and put in a pretty pile and shared at another time. What else was I going to say? I was going to say something else, and what was it? Owen, do you remember? We're a pair today.
No,
I'm concussed, and you're, Robotust, and
Robotust. Yes, you're concussed. I'm Robotust.
yeah. But yeah, so we'll be back.
Crime.
Yeah, exactly. Let's fight some crime together. Oh, nice. Jonesy's talking about working on his Fantasy Age adventure for Gen Con. Cool. I'm glad
Awesome.
Yep, very good stuff. It is just about that time. We got about 1 minute left. With that 1 minute, I'm going to have it just sit here in silence and stare awkwardly into the camera. No, I'm not. Well, there we go. I love it. But yeah, yeah, share some PC names with us, like Gumthuck. I like it.
That's a
Gumthuck.
dragon name. That's not a PC name. No one would ever name their character Gumthuck.
I'm going to now. The Adventures.
You can reverse it and get Thumbguck, and that's not any better.
No, that's not. Both of them have a bad mouthfeel, but I fear that the adventures of Concussed and Robotust have come to an end for this day. Thank you for watching. If you're checking this out on demand, thank you as well. And you too, be sure you're liking and loving and giving us some comments and all that good stuff, so we can thwart the algorithm that keeps us away from our, glory or whatever that is. But until then, we shall talk to you, and have a great rest of your week. We will see you Monday for Mutants and Masterminds Monday. Goodbye.
Mondays and Mutant Masters.
Mutants and Monday Monsters. All right, that's it. Wave goodbye, Owen.
Goodbye, Owen.